IGN Origins is brought to you by Warner Brothers and Legendary Pictures Pacific Rim. Own it October 15th on Blu-ray or digital HD.
Pacific Rim, that's the focus of this episode of IGN Origins, your source of today's entertainment and the origins behind the inspiration. Out on Blu-ray October 15th, Pacific Rim is set to deliver giant mecha carnage and stunning visuals never experienced before by fans of massive mecha mayhem. So put on your spandex jumpsuit and strap in. It's time to dive into the origins of some of our favorite electric leviathans.
I was very influenced by anime, mainly the anime of my youth, Tetsujin 28.
Tetsujin 28 Go is considered the birth of mecha anime, but some would debate that a little bit because it was remote-controlled mecha versus piloted mecha. H.G. Wells had already introduced the idea of piloted mecha with War of the Worlds, the rich tripods, remember? But Tetsujin was the first humanoid.
The idea of the super robot, the giant robot, that's the first one I believe that was really broke through in pop culture.
And it's this little kid operating this huge robot, and he's like, boy detective and massive robot.
I don't think if I was 10, I don't think I'd be allowed to have a giant robot.
First thing that I would have done is absolutely destroy my school.
It would have definitely helped my mother out with chores.
I think he is more powerful than I thought.
There's this man named Dr. Hell.
The time has come at last for me to conquer the world.
He says exactly what he wants, which is world domination and destruction.
Look, doctors put in long hours. Sure, they get paid well, but it's not all it's cracked up to be. He never gets home to see Mrs. Hell because he's always working.
He is on an archaeological dig and finds these ancient relics that are huge mecha. He takes the robots, he kills everybody else on the dig with him, except for one man who escapes. The man who escapes builds Messenger Z in order to fight Dr. Hell. It was a piloted mecha. That was the first time you saw that. That's what we traditionally see today. So it sort of ignited in the 70s, the genre. Macross Plus is the first time that they use computer animation in anime. The animators from Macross Plus actually went to Edwards Air Force Base to watch fighter jets so that they could animate them appropriately and sort of realistically. That was important to them.
They never saw Top Gun?
God damn you, Maverick.
You see this intricate machine moving. Pistons and levers and gears that are creating the mechanical movement. We reveal that level of design only in certain areas. That gives a frequency to our robots that you haven't seen in live action in any film.
So the functionality and the logic of these robots is of supreme importance to Del Toro, as is the biological functionality and logic to the kaiju. So Neon Genesis Evangelion is the show that most people are likening to Pacific Rim. These creatures that are called angels in this show come in. It's an extinction level event, and the only hope for humanity are these big giant robots. With the exception of Pacific Rim, where these are adults actually, the large majority of the protagonists in anime, it's children or young adults. It's the same idea as like The Last Starfighter, right? A little kid, a teenager that plays video games is going to be able to do this because they've been playing video games forever.
You know, it's like a glorified version of a boy and his dog, except in this case, the dog is a giant-ass robot. I think Ultraman is probably the most gloriously awful and awesome possible combination of kaiju and a giant robotic-looking being fighting that I could possibly hope for.
So he can be in human form, but then if he has to go kick some kaiju butt, he is Ultraman, my hero, Ultraman.
If you could imagine Pacific Rim being made for $1.25 in the mid-60s, Ultraman is about as close as you're going to get to it. He's drop-kicking a kaiju. How can you not like that?
Voltron, defenders of the universe.
So Travis Beacham definitely watched Voltron as a kid. He said that that was one of his favorites, hugely popular in the United States, but it was created from 2 separate Japanese cartoons. The producers had no way of translating the Japanese anime, so they just kind of made up the plot and they made up the dialogue, and it worked.
Voltron, I think the fact that he has such a cool name helps it last longer than necessarily any specific story from it.
Eventually, in every battle, Voltron takes out his sword and then explodes the enemy. But it's the same piece of stock footage every single time. The same exact explosion every single time. No one cares.
I think it's amazing that essentially a low-budget movie from 20-odd years ago has ended up being this sort of harbinger of things to come.
And so the idea is that we're gonna have 2 huge robots fighting each other, and then we'll tune in like it's a sporting event, and whichever robot wins, they get the territory that they're fighting for. So basically, it's awesome.
It's tough not to look at Robot Jox and not see some sort of version of Pacific Rim from when I was a kid. The fact that it's so cheesy and quaint looking by today's standards, actually I feel like makes it charming.
Go Rangers? No. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. The Power Rangers was a phenomenon, right? Like, it's still a phenomenon today. It's amazing.
There was a resurgence in the stuff from sort of 60s giant robot stuff in the 80s and bled into the 90s. The 20-somethings that are seeing those trailers for Pacific Rim, they're sold.
In general, Pacific Rim is having people either revisit things that they loved as kids, all kinds of anime and Power Rangers for sure, but all of the things that we've talked about.
Pacific Rim delivers breathtaking new visual effects to a genre that has evolved way beyond miniature cities and rubber suits. Out on Blu-ray October 15th, check it out for some good old-fashioned giant robot on giant monster action. We'll catch you next time on the next episode of IGN Origins.